Hey guys, I told you I might make a incident review or something, and so I'm going to make you one. I will go through, if not all, many incidents, and just give my thoughts about them. So let's see how it goes. So here we have a move, and there's some curious things going on here. Yeah, I think the breakpoint in front is fair enough. And here you see he's going to hit the car in front anyway. And it really doesn't help that the car jerks to the right. And I think this is a reactionary move. It's not that he's going to take this line, and absolutely you shouldn't do that. If you are changing your line while braking and another car is diving, he will always hit you. Or at least it will be close. Don't do that. Don't change your line under braking. This one is pretty self-evident. Car behind just carries too much speed and hits the other one on the rear. And this is something that will happen again, whatever you do. I think both cars are a little early on the apex, but yeah. I get that it's not so easy to always react to this kind of stuff. But when you see the car in front slowing down, you should try to slow down yourself. Even if it requires you to go straight and go, I guess, off the line, even maybe to the sand, because it costs you probably less time than driving with damage with all of the rest of the race, especially since there's no one right behind you. You could have just went to the right at this kind of situation. But it's somewhat understandable that it's just a mistake. It's not a stupid decision, it's just a reactionary mistake. With this one, we are going to touch on something that we will talk about again later. But this mistake, okay, it's just a mistake. And I understand you want to keep your position, you want to push, and the car inside doesn't necessarily know that we are going 3 wide. Fair enough. He has to dodge the Acura in front, slows down, goes wide, and the car behind does a good job to avoid. And at this point, it's too wide, kind of, but the car inside, the very inside, pushes to make it 3 wide. And there's not that you can't do it, like it's not against the rules, but you should ask yourself, even if all 3 cars, or even 2, make the corner, how fast is this narrow line going to be for the car on the inside? Let's see he is able to follow the very inside. The problem with that is that even if you get sort of perfect exit for that inside line, the car on the outside will always have such a better exit that you won't get the place. And it's easy to say now afterwards, especially with the 3 wide, but at this point you should just follow the other cars back up. You could argue that you can scare them to make a mistake, maybe keep the position with your car placement, but in general I would avoid that, as we will see later on turn 1. But yeah, this is a bit messy. It's a strange situation to be 3 wide there in the first place, and yeah, you're not ready for that kind of stuff. When I say you, I mean literally everyone. It's a weird situation. And then the rejoin. You should kind of hold on place, except you actually have on this time, if you see the relative, okay, I can go safely. You should go. Don't stay there on the line sideways. But the place you want to go is forwards on this kind of corner. I know it's tricky with both of you there, but now you are offline, both cars are offline, and now one car is on the line sideways. If he had gone straight, he might have had a crash with the Acura, fair enough, but maybe you could wait or spin the car to the right direction. You need to practice that. If you just spin 360 and hit someone, that's not good either. But yeah, no matter which direction your car is pointing, you shouldn't go back to the line, especially back to the line. But yeah, there's good avoidance there, a slowdown probably. But it is what it is. Rejoins be rejoins. This is going to be something I used to do myself until I saw the light. But you can see he's braking and he's going to go for a dive bomb. At this point, you are just too late. Asking now the other car to back off completely is not fair. You will always cause collisions with these kind of dives. I don't think you need to be ahead at the apex like in Formula 1, but this kind of overlap is just non-existent at this point. Getting the overlap at this point is just not enough. Even if you both make the corner, the car in front has such a better exit that this move just won't work. It only works if other people are afraid of you and dodge. If he took the outside line, gave you space to you stay inside, he would still win in this situation. So it's not a good move to make. And this is the vortex of danger kind of move, where you just surprise the car in front, because it happens really fast. Like, yeah, of course he might see you on the mirror and dodge, but you shouldn't expect people to be able to do that in this kind of speed. And suddenly you are there when he's already turning. So, diving, okay, but that late diving with that little overlap, don't do it. And mistakes will always happen, fair enough, but here I have some trouble with the decision making itself. Despite the incidents we took a look at, I'm not sure I find all of them, but race 1 was fairly clean. I think it's because we start in somewhat speedy order, like people are not going to fight for position that much because we are in the direction the race will more or less be like. Okay. Anyway, let's go with the next one. All the fast drivers know probably, maybe not, if not everyone, race start is a really great place to make a lot of positions on these reverse grids, but you can see what's going on here. 3 cars go wide on the first exit, and yeah, you can be fair and say it's avoidance, but this situation starts with 2 cars trying to go 3 wide, which is fair enough, especially the white and blue car here. I think it's more or less fair, wouldn't go for this last dive, which he backs out of, which is good. And him backing out maybe takes the Mustang a little by surprise. And at this point, if the Mustang has any control, he should also back off. Try to be a little further back. So this situation will be similar in a way to the last corner incident we saw earlier with 3 wide. That cars are now pushing for a really inside line. I think this is a little surprising that now you have a clear track in front of you. Maybe you could move to the left if it was clear, except it isn't. So you will have to stay on the inside anyway. But yeah, the car coming there in front of you is a bit like you might not be ready for it, except this driver is good enough for that kind of situation. And you can still go for the inside if you really, really want to. But let's imagine he doesn't understeer or, jump from the curb and makes the line work. He stays on the inside with this practically almost 3 wide situation now. To get such a line, so you go here, would mean that you have to slow down so massively that all the cars behind you will basically have to park it on the apex so they don't hit you. And also, all the cars taking the outside line or coming after you with a more sensible line will have a massive speed advantage on the straight. So this move just doesn't work. It's always going to lead either to an incident or time loss after the apex. Yeah, you might win the car on the outside, but all of the cars behind will have a big advantage. You see this at Red Bull Ring all the time, and, don't do it. Now this situation is a bit awkward. 4 wide. On this track there's room for 5, but netcode gets messy if you have to be so close. And I would argue that in this kind of league, it's a fair thing not to be aware of where all the cars around you are. I don't think anyone wants to crash on purpose, especially on the straight. Well, anyway. And this is just a little unfortunate. It's not an easy thing to be aware of everything that's happening around you. There's just so much. And I don't think there is any malice or anything with this. I can't remember how the rest goes, except I crash. Oh, well, actually. So it's netcode, and on this point, you can see that, okay, cars are going to hit the wall, so they might bounce back. So you could move more to the left. But it's an awareness issue and netcode, massive netcode. You can see the car is moving to the left to avoid, but as it's me, I actually know that I didn't know if there was a car on the left. Because at this point there was, and I wasn't sure which car it was and how far it was. And I was just trying to follow the pack, basically. And at this point, bad awareness, didn't know if there's a car on the left or not, so I didn't move all the way to the left, even if I had the space. And then I was punished by the netcode gods, which is fair enough. No one's fault, really. It's just, well, I guess it's my fault, more or less, but netcode be netcode. Actually, there was more victims, or victim at least. So this, a little late reaction, but, it's a situation that happens really fast and suddenly there's a car in your way. Now you could argue that he has a good view what's happening, and maybe he should have braked at this point or soon to avoid this whole thing, except he has a car right behind him, which makes it more tricky. But you lose a lot of time, and people don't want to do that. People just want to go full throttle everywhere, so I kind of get it. But yeah, now he loses a lot more time by just crashing. Car is probably destroyed. Well, might still drive. But yeah, that's still unfortunate. Wouldn't be too mad about any of that. And here we see another late dive. I appreciate showing the intention early, like you are going to go for a dive. But at this point, you should just back off. Even again, if you make this line work, the car on the outside has a massive advantage of traction and just, carrying more speed, better exit. And you could argue that he doesn't leave you enough space on the inside, but come on, the overlap is so little, tire on tire at max. And there's no overlap. Now you could say maybe there's starting to be overlap, but it's just too late. You're slowing down both, even if the other car dodges and makes you space. But again, this is the vortex of danger kind of stuff. I might link that, but if you do this kind of late overlap, you are asking for a crash, basically. And it has some big implications for other cars. Well, actually both. You get stuck here and cause a bunch of incidents. This one, again, awareness. You can see the car is coming back to the track and, you know, doesn't stay on the outside, causes more crashes. But again, I don't think there's anything intentional. Awareness is hard. Not much I would say about it. And then let's see the rejoin while we are at it. Okay, so what I can appreciate is that he gets out of the way and stops. He doesn't do anything silly. He lets the back go through until he doesn't. He realizes, oh, there's cars coming, and then he still moves. Maybe he didn't realize the cars are coming, I don't know. But it's, again, a thing where you are not on the line, and then suddenly you are on the line. Especially at this point. Audi is going to get hit and spins and waits. And at this point, it's nice that you wait, but when you see the last car there, if you know it's the last car and you have relative open, you know no one's coming after that last car there, you might spin the car around to the left. You can bind a button to make TC go away for like 5 seconds. On some cars, it might untoggle TC completely, so watch out for that if yours is one of them. Not sure if any GT3 are. But yeah, it would be safe to spin around at this point, especially if you can see that the car behind is still turning around. And the solution would have been for the McLaren 2, when you are at this point, maybe wait for the first cars to go anyway. But you could spin the car around, especially at this point. You could just spin the car to the left and go, instead of going more on reverse. But it's one of those situations where it's easy to say afterwards, oh, you should not have done that. But, you know, we can maybe still learn something. Maybe not, who knows. This is a netcode kind of thing, but also just a thing of expectations not being met. The Mustang is moving to the right, which is fair enough, because the actual line kind of goes here all the way on the right, as you can see. But the car in front just doesn't move there for some reason, which is fair enough, you don't have to. And then netcode gets involved, but the car behind should kind of avoid going this close at this point. But it's just an iRacing thing, and I'm lucky here not to worry about this too much about this, but this might happen, and sometimes you just get away with it and nothing wrong goes on here. But it is what it is. Good recovery from both cars, especially like the control on the slide. Yeah, boy, nice. Let's find the next one. So we have one more of this, and we will have them in the future, I'm sure. The move is now on, well, tries to be on, but you are just way too far, letting go of the brakes and expecting the other car to give you space there is a bit much. In fairness, clearly there's an effort not to hit, like you are probably getting off track because you are going so much on the inside. But the mistake is not really that the car outside doesn't give you space, it's going there in the first place. You might again argue, oh, I can go there, there's space, but it's just going to lead to an incident very often. And if this happens all the time to you, maybe you shouldn't do it. It's not... The overlap is so little that even if you now make it, the car in front, again, gives you space, and then you get all the way to this corner, the other car is most likely ahead of you and also has the inside, so you don't have the advantage. It would be different if you were side by side at this point. Then you have a chance to be ahead by the next corner, or at least have an advantage even on the outside. But if you are so late, you are too late. Something nice we get out of this is that he's holding his brakes, stops, sees, okay, I'm clear to go. And you can see that the cars are coming and he's slower than the other cars. But he's on the outside, there's room for all the cars that have more speed to pass him. And if we compare this, well, let's wait for him to stop. He is sort of not on the line, but if cars go too wide, it's still a tricky spot to be in. And I would prefer him to be moving at 50 kilometers an hour, now always out of the way, and the cars can see him early enough. So it's not... Okay, this is... Let's see here. So you can see the car a long time ahead and react. So that's a good rejoin. Even though you are now going in front of the other cars, you have enough time and space to do it. So we might as well go through some good stuff, why not? So again, no overlap, he's braking. Well, the car in front is braking, and now he's braking. And now he's actually passed the other, he has actually passed the other car, and this is fair. And he's on the inside, he can probably make a move, and yeah, there's contact, netcode contact. But this move was on. It wasn't too late. It's a good thing that they made it. But also making moves on that turn one is a little tricky, because now you both lost time. The Porsche has advantage over you both. So often it's a good idea to wait on the next corner to make your move. But that's like a little meta thing that is not so relevant now. This is a bit strange one, because the car in front clearly just misses his turning point. And I don't think it's that unfair to be here, especially if you actually nailed the apex and didn't go a bit wide yourself. Because it's obvious now that there was a mistake. And yeah, you don't have that much overlap. But I would argue that if you are all the way to the right, you shouldn't expect to be allowed to return to the racing line so easy. And it's a bit netcodey, but you were going to hit anyway. And this was really funny, to be fair. So at least there was something good about it. This is not a good... Whee goes the car. Anyway, when you are in this situation, you probably see the contact at this point. One car is sliding. Maybe you should slow down. In this case, it was worth it not to, because you get 2 positions easily. But you have damage, and this was just avoidable. The biggest gainer is obviously the Mustang, but who's not slowing down either. Well, actually lifting, but the contact is not far. Like, it's a bit risky. He makes places and is rewarded for the risk, but considering this is lap 9 out of 13, and you are not probably, well, you actually might catch the cars in front, who knows. But yeah, crashing takes more time than slowing down a bit. And immediately after, we see another crash. It's a bit unfortunate. And yeah, he does lift. But at this point, of course, it's not intentional, but do you really need to try to push on that little hole there, and you don't. Maybe you just try at this point you react, okay, I'm not going to get to the inside. But I would question the decision making here a bit. You are so much behind. At this point, just follow him, get him later. And anything that happens after this, it is what it is. It's strange what iRacing does when you are stuck and glued to another car. And then we are going to see another horrible rejoin. So you can see there's a car on the side of the road, more or less static, and then he's sideways on the line. So 2 different easier outcomes, three. Either wait, reverse a bit and get going, or just spin the car around. Again, requires a little practice to make it right, and you will get some sand on the track, but on this part of the track it doesn't really matter. Also, you just want to get going, so why care about the sand? But probably the correct thing would have been some small reversing or talented spinning around, which is also a bit risky. If you do it, practice for that kind of stuff, because if you just try to spin the car and make a mistake doing it, you will still probably end up on the line in front. And also you could have just waited. I don't know if I said that already, but who cares? Let's go. So this kind of rejoin, I think it's not completely unfair to join back to the track, because the car behind has a clear view of you coming back. I know he's going to get surprised, but I would argue that you should expect the car to return. And he does a good job avoiding, except he lost the rear. And then, but there was definitely a good chance to not have any contact, but I can see it has damage also. So, maybe that makes it more oversteery, and especially this kind of surprising situation. But when you rejoin from this kind of angle, it's not easy to rejoin, I admit, especially sliding on the sand, but try to stick to the right. Try not to get in front of the car behind. In principle, I wouldn't be against this kind of rejoin, but the actual rejoin itself could be a bit better. But the decision making, I'm fine with it. So right after we have this situation, I can respect the opportunism, but trying to get both of them, not sure about that. I think it's a little, I get that maybe you shouldn't try to go in when there's a car approaching, but you are also too wide, and asking this kind of awareness is a bit much from the other driver. Yeah, if you drive against the top drivers, they will have better awareness, and also it's a little different with them, and they do also do really stupid stuff, obviously. But yeah, at this situation, even if the car on the outside didn't kind of turn in, you were heading to the outside more than you should at this point. And just slotting behind the Acura it's a McLaren. Behind the McLaren would have been a good idea. You would still have the Acura on the inside for the next right-handers, so maybe you wouldn't get a position. But, getting contact also really dangerous, and you will, if you get suspension damage, the race is just ruined often. But it is what it is. I don't think my point of view is always the only one, but here you have my view of the first race's incidents, or at least many of them. I hope we can get something out of this, like less rejoins like we had here. There wasn't too many, but it's a fast situation that happens, and then maybe you don't think, you just go, I want to go forward, and you will without thinking, but at least check the relative before you rejoin. And I would hope that we don't get too many of those vortex of danger kind of dives, because I've explained they are not really a good idea. And of course, you sometimes just thought wrong. You thought, yeah, I can do this, and you couldn't, which is fair enough. It's something that happens. But anyway, hope to see you on Sunday on Monza. Enjoy your week until that, and that's day 2. Bye.